Perfect. Hello, people too who are just joining. We are just going to give it another moment or so everybody else can make sure they get in here. We do have a poll up on the screen. We're just looking to see if you're using any AI tools outside of Mydoma right now, and then how much of your week is going towards sourcing and speccing. I'll give it another couple of seconds just to make sure everybody is ready to go. Okay, we are at 2 minutes after the hour. So to be respectful of everybody's time, let's get started. Just going to share the poll results really quick, just so we can all kind of take a look at it. A couple of you are using some tools outside of Mydoma. That's really cool. I think we all kind of are at this point. It's what the world is asking of us. And it's interesting to see how many people are spending hours on speccing and sourcing your products. It seems to be, at least it's not everybody's full job, but it's still a good amount of hours. All right, let us get started. So, hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. We are talking about connected catalog and AI rendering. So this is part of our August release. So this just came out a couple weeks ago. Some of you might have already started playing around in it. We are going to talk about how it works and get a little demo of it. So real quick, just to go over what we'll be going through. We're going to talk about kind of like the problem that we thought of and we think solves, this release solves. We're going to introduce it. We're going to kind of show you the value and the impact as we go through, and then there will be that live demo. There will be a Q&A session at the end, but of course, feel free to send in your questions as it goes along. We will have some people backstage answering them, or if we think that they are really good and that the whole rest of the group should be hearing this as well, we'll wait until the end and then we'll do it then. So the little Q&A box is at the bottom of your screen. It'll pop up like this, and you can just type in your question. It gets directly sent to us. Also, I am recording this, and I will be sending this out after. So if you miss anything or you want to re-see it, you'll get it in your email very shortly after this webinar ends. So just a quick introduction. I am Allie Batsley. I am the product marketing manager here. Melina Van Oors is going to be doing the live demo portion. So you'll see her in a couple moments. So to start out, I kind of just want to take a step back and think about the problems that we have sourcing today. So you're probably working on a project, you've got a Pinterest board going, you have a browser with 15 tabs open, you have some vendor PDFs downloaded, maybe some screenshots in a folder somewhere. You kind of know what you're looking for, but you're bouncing around between all of these places just to find a single piece. That's a lot of tabs oftentimes. Then when you do finally find the piece, you have to pin down everything with that product. You have to pick the color. You have to make sure that the specs align with how big your room is. And that just really takes up so much time. Then you have to put all of that together into something you can show your client. You have to visually prove to them that this chair is going to work in their space and this all makes sense together. So it's really a big effort. And then finally, you have to put it all into Mydoma. You found all of this outside. You did your speccing, your sourcing, and your visualization all outside of Mydoma. And now you have to put it back into the system. So that's just a lot of data entry. You're duplicating efforts most of the time. And it's really an issue not with productivity, but just with fragmentation. Everything is disconnected. And that's just such a hard way to work in every sense of the word. So we here asked ourselves, what if it didn't really have to work that way? What if when you're sourcing, it just lived in Mydoma? What if it was in a tool that you were using every single day? And what if it fed into things that you were already using in Mydoma, like the design boards? So we're thinking that If we put it all in Mydoma, it brings it all into one place for you. So having quick and reliable searches where you can look through keywords, you can look through prompts, and you can find what you need in seconds instead of hours. It's connected to all of your workflows already. You can just put it into your design boards that already exist. And then you can just add everything once. You aren't retyping in a bunch of information. Everything is already living in the site. And so you can move from sourcing to the visualization to actually procuring it and putting it into your projects and getting it into a client's room much quicker. So this is where we thought about our new experience, Connected Catalog. This is the new product discovery experience. This experience allows you to find trusted products from over 850,000, not 100,000, over 850,000 SKUs and more incoming from 300 plus curated trade-focused brands. So these are people that you already work with, probably brands you already trust, vendors you already love. We made sure that we picked people and brands that our designers were all already using. Then you can add this all into a project with pretty much a single click. You're not converting things. You're not doing the thing where you have two tabs open and you're copying and pasting information. It just flows into it. And then everything is connected. You can make sure that all of your ideas flow straight into your proposals, your invoices, anywhere that it's necessary. So how is this going to fit into how you already work? For product sourcing, everything is one place. You can find what you need quickly and you can just add it. For your project workflows, you're getting from the concept section to the sourcing to the procurement very quickly without duplicating any effort. And then for client presentations, you can make AI renders that show exactly what it's going to look like in your client's room. You can give them that visual piece they need to actually sign off on something without having to do a bunch of extra work, getting a graphic designer and trying to figure it out all yourself. All right. So we are going to move into the live demo portion. So I would suggest just watching out for how quickly everything can be moved from the product section into a project, and then how the AI rendering is really going to be the something you can show your client to really get them to sign on to something. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and hand it over to Melina. Hello, Melina.
Awesome. Hi, everyone. Thanks, Allie. Thanks for the intro. We're really excited about what we've got going on here today. And I would definitely encourage you guys to follow along in your own account so that you can get super comfortable with these new features and start using them as quickly as possible. So two places that you're going to find the connected catalog. We're going to start there and work through actually bringing some of those items into a rendering. So first place is going to be under your products section, and we've got a new tab called the connected catalog. Second place is going to be within your project. So if you're doing a lot of sourcing just for one project at a time, it'll skip one step in the process where you're not having to actually select which project to add items to if you work that way. Awesome. So might be familiar with the public libraries that we used to have in here. The connected catalog has replaced that, and it's something that we're going to be keeping up with. So every time I talk about it, we're at a different number of brands that we have in here, at a different number of items. I think, I can't remember the exact number Ali threw out in her presentation. I think it was 850,000 different items in here. And continuing to add to that, we're updating this on a regular basis. So anything in here, if it's discontinued or something has changed on the vendor's website, we are getting those updates and making that typically about once a month, kind of refreshing the content in here. As you can see on the far right side, we have several different filters. So there's a lot in here. And when we're sourcing, we do actually want to look and try to find something specific. So these filters will allow you to narrow down some of what you're looking for. Starting with the product name. So if I know I want, let's see, this something that I've seen in person, and I can have that come up for me here. I can also filter by brand. So that's going to be pretty long list in here. I know one that's pretty common that we've got is our house, for example. So I could come in, select our house, hit OK, and it's just going to show me, clear that name, it's just going to show me those items coming in from our house. As you may have noticed, I can apply multiple filters at once. So we've got category, and if we select this drop down here, we can see we're actually looking at some very specific categories here, and we can even drill down into those further. So let's say I'm looking for a sofa today, or actually, let's do a side table. So I can actually select this side table, hit OK, and it's going to filter that down even further for me. We also have a dimension filter. So I can look at a width, height, and depth or length and setting a specific boundary here. So if I'm working with a small room, for example, I can make sure that the item that I'm sourcing will actually fit in there. Um, and the height as well. If there's something that we want to make sure it's a certain height, our dining table, for example, something like that, we can set that in here. This is based on inches. So I don't know, let me throw something in here like 26 inches. Let's see. So, I mean, you guys are the designers. I'm on the product side. So I might not be applying the filters the way that you might, but that is at least gives you some idea of how the filters can apply together. And then if I wanted to actually look at things within a certain color, um, I know sometimes you've got a vision, of course, for your project, and having the right color scheme is definitely important to that. So we've got a handful of preset colors that we can filter by just by clicking on those. Or you can also add a custom color. So let's try looking at that too. I've got this can't remember what this is called, but you're actually able to click and drag to find the exact color that you're looking for. We can also filter, select a specific hex number. So if you know that number, you can type it in. And we have also this really cool color picker. So if I've got something on my screen that I am trying to match, I can select that color firm, and it's going to pull up items that are within a certain range of that specific shade. All right, so I can see here some of those populating, and I could go from there. One more filter that we have in here is a pretty cool one. We've actually got an AI search. So let's say the filters aren't working, there's something else that's more specific that you're looking for. Let's say you actually want a table with a brass finish, for example, and we don't necessarily have a finish filter in there. What you can actually do is toggle this AI search and type in, just describe exactly what you're looking for. So let's say a dining table with a brass finish. I can hit search, and that's going to try to pull up the nearest, right, the closest thing to what I'm looking for. So I've got all different kinds here. Maybe I want a specific style. I'm going for coastal, so I can filter by that and see what comes up. Now, actually looking at one of these items, I can click into it to see some additional details, including the description. If I want even more information, this linking tab also opens a new tab so that we can look directly at the item on the website that it came from. We can review any additional details that we might want to have, double check. And once we've confirmed we like it, we want to add it to a project, we can simply select that item and at the top right, hit add to project. Note that you can add multiple items at once. So if I like this table, I want to keep going and I want to add a sideboard. See what comes up. So I've got that table selected and I search for a sideboard. You'll notice that item stays selected and I could select something else in here at the same time, hit add to project and select the project that I want to add them to. And then it's going to pop up this page here. So it essentially acts as a confirmation. So you can see again what items you're adding. You can see which brand they came from, and you can select a vendor to assign them to. So these vendors are coming from your vendor list within your specific account. So that'll just be one thing to note. If you are discovering new brands in here, you'd want to make sure to add them as vendors within your account as well to be able to add the vendor in here. But you can add it later too. So you can still source, find your items, vendor later. All right. I can adjust the quantity that I have here if I needed to. So for example, dining chairs, we might have more than one, hopefully. Um, and add tags. We can delete everything. We could deselect everything. We've changed our mind. Maybe I don't want this sideboard in the end. And I can go ahead and hit add. And it'll let me know that that import was successful. So let's see what that actually looks like in our project. We'll come over here, find the project, and we can see that item come up in our products and services. Let me make it a little bit bigger here. The image took a second to load there, but I can see I've got the name, I've got the image, I've got the price from the website, and my markup and discount are being applied based on what I've input into my vendor information. And I've also got a link to the vendor site and the description at the end, which also came from the website. Awesome. So that's what takes us from sourcing an item to actually pulling it into a project. The next place that I think we want to take our attention is going to be to actually visualize what that item's going to look like in a real space, which brings us to the AI rendering, and that's going to be within our design boards. You may or may not have design boards visible at the moment on your project. If not, you can edit your project, go to project features and turn on design boards. And as you can see here, I've got a couple of sample ones that I've been pulling together. We'll start with this dining room that I already pulled a few things in. All of these items came in from the connected catalog, so you can see just an idea of what's out there and what you can pull together. But let's go ahead and add that item that we just added to our project and visualize what that's going to look like. So same as you would for those that are familiar with the design boards, you select your image from the project images. You could also actually just pull images in from the connected catalog here directly if you wanted to. So that is an option if you're not ready to add it to your project yet, but you want to visualize it in a space. But for now, I'm just going to select this dining table and import it. All right, I like keeping things nice and neat looking, so I'm going to go ahead and remove the background on this image. And while that loads, we'll just note that we definitely are in here. Forgot my train of thought, but um, we've got our background done. Got my table in the place that I want it to be. I've kind of set things up a little bit in a way so you've got the light on top of the table, you've got your chair pulled in, and all of that. And you might notice we've got a new button here, the Generate AI Render. When I click on that, it's going to give me two pieces of information to fill out. The first being the reference image. So the reference image is where you're able to pull either an image that you've already got in your media gallery, already been working in your project, or you can upload it from your computer. The idea being is image of the room that you're planning on pulling together. So maybe you've gone to your client's house, you've taken a picture of the room, and you've got that ready and ready to go. We can add that in. Now, I've already been doing a bunch of rendering, so I think I already have the dining room in here, and I do. I am gonna just reuse that existing one. All right, so I've got an empty room in here, and then I've got a prompt box. The prompt is going to be where you get to tell the AI what it is that you want this space to look like. So I've already pulled up a drafted a prompt, if you will, that I'll throw in here. And just to explain what I'm getting into, we've got our style. So I can tell it if I want this image to come out photorealistic or if I want it to look a little bit more like a watercolor style painting or something like that. A lot of times our clients can get quite invested in an image that they see towards the beginning of the design process. So I know sometimes people like to make that adjustment up front so that they're not so stuck on what something looks like. We can also tell it what style we're going for. So in this case, we've got a coastal room. I've called out that I've got a large area rug. I'm telling it where I want my furniture to be placed. So the dining table, we'll have that centered in the room. We've got the pendant light above it, and I want 3 dining chairs. I've got a wallpaper. I can tell it which wall to put that on. And then I can tell it to add some curtains, add a plant, and off we go. And this is going to take, usually it'll take about 30 to 60 seconds to actually generate the rendering. And while that goes on, I actually want to pull up just a sample of different examples of renderings that we've been able to do, so that you have an idea of, what prompts go in and what comes out of it. So let me pull that up really quick. Try to show the right screen. All right. So here's one example, a living room. So you can see on the left side what the prompt was that was shown. And on the right side, you can see the image of the room as well as the items that were on the board. And note, these came from studio designer side, so the items don't necessarily look the way the design board would, but that gives you an idea. Um, and then next slide will be, we can see what that room actually looks like with those items pulled in. Second example that we have here is a bedroom. And in this case, we've told it to do an acrylic style with some visible paintbrush strokes. We want it to add the bed, put sconces, and we've also told it put the client's pets in there. So they've got a lab and 2 cats. Let's show them what their room is going to look like in a way that it would actually happen. So this is what the renderer turned out with their pets at the foot of the bed. Then we've also got a library. In this case, the prompt we gave it a style of watercolor. We told it where to place the furniture, told it to leave walkways behind the section on the right side, and to add in some accessories, which it's able to do. Here's what came out of that. And then last quick example I have here. Let's we want a pencil style rendering. Where to put furniture. We want a shelf. All right. I'm going to come back into our AI rendering that we ended up with. And I can see I've got my pendant light, I've got my table and chairs. It's like I ended up with 4. And that sideboard and mirror and the wallpaper all on that back wall. From here, I can go ahead and either download this image or I can add it to my files and media if that's something that I want to share with my client. And I just have to select which which folder I want to send it to, and off we go. One thing you might have noticed with the rendering is at the bottom after the prompt, I'll show it right here. After the prompt, it'll also tell you how many credits you have remaining. So at the moment, we've got 100 credits per month, resets at the beginning of each calendar month. And each credit corresponds to a single rendering. So you've essentially got 100 renderings that you can do per month here. Hopefully that gives you enough to get started. A couple other examples of what we've been able to do with our AI rendering that I want to highlight. What we've been able to do in one case is actually reupholster the sofa. So in this example, I'll pull this up here. This is a rendering that I pulled together for this little living room. And I actually this was a sofa that came in from the connected catalog. And what I asked the AI renderer to do was actually re-render the sofa in a different color based on this color swatch that I had here. So I threw the color swatch in the design board, and then I hit generate AI render and uploaded the sofa as the reference image. Try to find that here. We could do it with this one too, actually. So that was the reference image, and then I just told it reupholster this sofa with the color in the design board. And so it was able to do that. And this is what it came out with. So that's one option. If looking for things a little more realistic, you've got COM, customer's own materials, or anything like that, so that you have that option. And then the other thing that you can do is if you've got a room that you've taken a picture of and it still has furniture in it, the renderer actually does a better job if room is empty and use it to actually remove the existing furniture. It gives you a blank page, if you will, to work off of. And then you can actually generate your rendering with your new design. So the goal here really being you can convey your design intent with the real products in the real room, and ideally get to a yes from your client a little bit faster, or at the very least, be able to get a sense of what your design might look like before you fully commit to it. So I think that's everything that I wanted to cover. With that, I think I'll jump into some of our Q&A. Our supporting style images added as secondary pictures. At the moment, the connected catalog will just upload the one main image within when it adds it as an item. So no secondary pictures added at the moment. But for anything that we don't have yet, if it's something that you would be really interested in, I would encourage you to go to our ideas portal. If you haven't already, that's where we track any enhancement suggestions. We do pay attention to those. That's what affects what we actually build next. So being able to see either voting on an existing idea or creating your own, that tells us what's important to you, so we know what to build next. Next question was, when uploading a client's room for the rendering, will existing furniture pieces be removed automatically? You can try it. It does a better job if you actually empty the room first, and you can do that using the AI rendering. Essentially what you would do, let me jump back to my design board. So you can upload the image of the room as it stands into your design board, hit generate generate AI render, and then you would actually just put a white background here. So let me see if I have that. So we've got white background, and I can say remove the furniture from this room, hit generate, and it'll take its time, but it'll pull out the existing furniture, so that you can then use that new image of the room for your rendering. The next question I have, how does the rendering recognize the scale of the client's room? So furniture pieces are to scale within the room. It's certainly using, doing it its best, if you will. It's using what it understands about the size of the items that you're adding in. But certainly if you have the size of your room, and you want to call that out in the prompt, that will definitely help make it as accurate as possible. If I don't have a photo of the room, can I describe the room type to the AI instead? You definitely can. It will create its own room, if you will, based off of what you're describing. I haven't actually tried that yet, but it will do so. So I've done it where I don't add anything as a reference image, and I just leave this blank and it'll make it up. I haven't put anything in the prompt to specify what the room should look like, but that's certainly a good option. Will pricing automatically be included in the product catalog? Some had pricing and some did not. That's a great question. So where we can, we're pulling all of this information from the different brands' websites. Some brands do show their prices and some do not. So where they do display their prices, we have been able to pull that in. Where we haven't been able to pull that information in, we do just display the 0. But for anything in the catalog, certainly I would just double check your own trade pricing, your own discounts and such. And you can update those prices once you've added the item to your project, so that it matches your trade pricing as well. And then next question, do the renders always do the first page, then the render? Or did you do this elsewhere? I'm not sure I follow the question. You can, you do want to create the design board first, if that's what you mean by first page. So you would add your different items to the design board and then generate the rendering. There's no additional step beyond that. But feel free to clarify your question and ask it differently if I haven't answered it. And next question, can you update and change renderings after the first draft if you request changes? At the moment, it just gives you one and it's done, but that is something that we've heard there's interest in. There is an idea in the ideas portal. I would encourage you to vote on it. The more votes that we see in there, the more we're able to justify making updates, making certain updates. So that is what I would encourage, and it is something that we do want to improve on. I was breaking up when explaining removing existing furniture in its room to use for renderings. I apologize for that. I didn't cut out. Essentially, what you can do is upload the image of the room to your design board, put a blank background as your reference image, and just in the prompt, tell it to remove any existing furniture. Can I add secondary images once the item is added to my project? I don't believe it allows you to add secondary images at the moment. That is something that we would have to consider as a future enhancement. Does removing furniture then take a credit before we actually render the space with product selections? That it does. So anytime you're generating a rendering, it is taking up a credit. Can I use the rendering tool for items I have added to my library over the years with Mydoma? Absolutely. So you can use anything you want in here, anything that you add to a design board. So your product images from your catalog, for example, anything that you've pulled into a previous project, those are available to add into your design board as well. And it looks like last question here. When you showed us an empty room with the prompt details and the products below, then the second page was the rendered space. I missed where you clicked. I think it was some renders you did previously. I'm trying to remember what I was doing. Second page was the rendered space. When you say page, do you mean, so these are all my different design boards, if these are what you're thinking of as pages. So in each project, we've got design boards. If you're not familiar with design boards, you can add new ones in the top right and just name it. Yeah, we've got a kitchen next, for example. And once I have that design board, I can add all the different items. Once I have at least one item in there, we can generate the AI render. I have one more piece of feedback that I cut out when I was showing the different rendering looks. I apologize for that. I didn't realize it was having trouble. So yeah, let me share the PowerPoint again, showing is this the watercolor? Yes, so we had a watercolor of a library, and we had a colored pencil drawing of a dining room. And then there was one last one on here, just an example of big poster. So you could take a chair, for example, in the connected catalog. You've got your material, your reference image background, and it can actually, so in the prompts, the specified show me four angles, you can actually have those four different images of the item when you do that reupholstery. All right. Well, it looks like that's it for the open questions. Back to you, Allie.
Yeah, thank you so much, everyone. Those were some great questions. Again, we are sending out this recording after. So if you want to review anything, and of course, you are always able to send in your questions to us. We will answer them as they come in. But thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you to Melina for walking us through everything. And I hope everybody has a good rest of their day. Have a good one, everyone.